We've got Don Fisher on the line. Don, we had a little bit of an audio issue, but I think we have you now.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right.
Hey, Don. Good morning. How are you? This is Dewan.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm well. Been looking forward to talking with you all morning, so happy to have you.
Yeah, I'm sorry we had the problem here. We've delayed ourselves a little bit, but I'm happy to answer any questions you got for me.
Let's go straight to the Bob Knight era. How was it? I wasn't around that era, of course, but I've heard many stories through my basketball peers and just the business itself. So, talk to me a little bit about him.
Well, obviously, and this is my opinion, but I think he's the greatest college basketball coach that's ever lived. And I know there's a lot of controversy that's been involved with Coach Knight over the years, and there was certainly that. There's no question. But a very interesting man, one of the most intellectual people I've ever been around, unbelievable, voracious type reader, guy that he read everything, War and Peace, those kinds of things, The Art of War. These are books that are like 3 times deeper than the Bible type stuff. I mean, it was amazing the knowledge that this man had. And he was such a tremendous basketball coach. He was an amazing guy at breaking down film, making adjustments in games, doing all the things that you expect of a great basketball coach. And then he was able to get kids to buy in, even though he was a tough taskmaster type guy. These kids would buy in, and to this day revere him as a basketball coach and as a person. So he was and he was a dichotomy too, in the sense that he was tough on the media. He and the media always had this controversial relationship. He was not a guy that suffered fools in any way, shape, or form, or silly questions, that type of thing. Didn't handle himself in some situations like most people do. Therefore, the controversy. But an unbelievable basketball coach, and anybody who played for him will tell you that.
No, that's amazing to hear. I was recruited by Tom Crean, and he spoke highly of the legend. But to hear how he was, and I came from that coaching lineage of being coached hard, understanding. Don't listen to how he said it, but the message that he's saying. How do you think now, if Bob Knight was to be in this era, how many camera phones will be recording how he ran his practices?
Well, trust me, anybody with a phone would have one. Number one, they would be recording what he was doing, because he was one of those guys that was revered, not just by players and guys who played for him. He was revered by other coaches, and I was allowed to come to a lot of practices, and every time I came to a practice, just about, there was some other coach or coaches in those practices watching how he went about his business, how organized it was, and the way he went about dealing with players. And it was really an experience. I was with the guy for 27 of his 29 years at Indiana. His first 2 years, I was not here at that point, but I was there the other 27. I've seen a lot of other coaches come and go since Bob Knight, and I can tell you there's nobody that compares with him. And I saw a lot of great coaches that went up against him, and virtually everyone would say exactly the same thing. They revered Bob Knight like he was a special, special person.
I plan on picking up some of his books to implement in my practices and just his principles of life, because I'm big on leadership. So, no, I really appreciate that. I want to transition to this upcoming season with Mike Woodson and the culture that he's trying to bring at IU. What's your thoughts about Coach Woodson?
Well, he's 63 years old, so he's coming from the NBA. He's never coached a college basketball game until the 2 exhibition games that they played in the Bahamas. But I will tell you that, and Mike's a different kind of a coach than Coach Knight in that sense. He relates really well to these kids in a different way, which I think today, in this atmosphere that we deal with and how kids have been raised today and the differences in the era of Bob Knight and now Mike Woodson, and he has been able to adapt incredibly well. He got most of these kids that were in the transfer portal when he got here and named the coach. He got most of them to come back to this program just by sitting down with them and talking to the parents and talking to the players. Trace Jackson Davis, who is probably the biggest name on this current roster.
Right,
Was a
All-American.
guy that, yeah, absolutely. And he talked with Trace Jackson Davis and his parents for 10 minutes, and Trace Jackson Davis said, "I'm coming back for my junior year."
I think
it was literally a 10-minute deal.
I think he could be a first rounder once he proves that he can stretch the floor and not just be a dominant factor in the inside presence, but once he stretches the floor, and proves that he can, he's going to be a first rounder. No doubt about it.
I think that's the key, though. He's got to be able to shoot that basketball from outside, and he still doesn't do it to the level of which you would expect a guy who's worked on it. And I know he has, because he knows that as well. He actually, I don't know if he went to some tryout camps last year or not, but they all told him one thing: you've got to be able to shoot the basketball better than you do now from outside, because he's reticent to even take an outside shot, and has been in the past.
And
so,
he's a lefty. I mean, he's dangerous on the floor. It's hard to guard him. I mean,
yep, absolutely.
His upside is through the roof.
Yeah, there's no question. He's a terrific athlete. And here's the other thing that Woodson's got him to do since he's been here. He's playing harder than I've ever seen him play. He's always had that reputation of kind of coasting a little bit in games, from one game to the next, not being 100% motivated to play as hard as he can. That's no longer the case. He is playing as hard as I've ever seen him play in practice, and he's doing it in the 2 games in the Bahamas. They said he was a wrecking crew down there just because of how hard he was playing, both at the defensive end and the offensive end. So there's no question Mike has got these kids' ear. Because of his NBA experience, they all know, of course, they all want to go to the NBA, as we all know. And we all know that most of them are not going to, but at the same time, they know that this guy is a guy that knows what it takes and can get them there if they're that good. So I think the transition has been tremendous.
Last question, Don. Archie Miller's era, why do you think, he had much success at Dayton but not at IU?
I think it was a different level of basketball that I'm not sure. I don't want to say he wasn't prepared for it. I think the communication skills, and one of the big differences in what we've seen out of Mike Woodson here early and what Archie Miller brought to the table, I think he struggled at times dealing with the players in his personality, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
Communication is such a critical factor these days. And honestly, I don't think he communicated quite the way that Mike Woodson has. And I think Archie's a really good basketball coach. You don't have a success he had at Dayton and not be a guy that gets it done.
Right.
But honestly, right now, I think that the big difference was communication skill with players.
Don, thank you so much for hopping on. I really appreciate this conversation.
Hey, no problem. Love talking to you guys. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Don. Take care.
Rise and shine.
All right. WJOB's Jim Deedlow starts your weekdays at 6 a.m. Jed in the region. And be sure to follow us on Facebook. WJOB, AM 1230 and 104.7 FM.